Good evening, everybody. I have a question for you tonight. How many of you have ever had a beer in your lifetime? Few of you may not have. As you can tell by me, I've had a few, and I like them. But every time you turn on your favorite TV station or radio station, you're bombarded by ads. Think about the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world. You drive past any 7-Eleven, any Publix, and you'll see a huge Budweiser truck with a guy just dialing in crate after crate after crate to fill up their coolers. But have you ever thought about what really goes into this billion-dollar industry? How did it get to where it is? According to the National Brewers Association, while the overall consumption of beer in the U.S. has gone down marginally by 0.2%, you can see that the overall beer market is still worth a whopping $106 billion, and $22.3 billion of that is craft beer, which some may find interesting. This evening, I'm going to attempt to enlighten you all about the history of beer as it pertains to the United States of America by focusing on 3 main time frames. And you may walk away with a lot more knowledge about beer than you ever wish to know. Story starts in 1587. The Virginia colonists were brewing beer out of corn, which they most likely learned from the Native Americans who were brewing beer before they ever got here. Out of corn, it's an old drink. However, the modern beer era didn't begin for another 220 years or so, around 1820. Around that time, a bunch of German and Dutch immigrants started coming over the country, and they brought their beer recipes from their homelands. It's a big thing over in Europe. In 1870, there was nearly 4,000 breweries in America. That number had dwindled way down in 1918 because of corporate giants such as Anheuser-Busch, Miller Brewing, Pabst Brewing that took over the market. But that all came crashing down just 2 years later, when the 18th Amendment was passed in 1920 that made the consumption, production, and sale of alcohol illegal for 13 years. With the supplies being limited and the amount of beer that people want to drink to be able to enjoy themselves, it wasn't really within anybody's interest to try to produce that. So people resorted to distilled liquors, moonshine, grain alcohol, things of the sort. And because it was an illegal market, it was dominated by organized crime syndicates. And they became more and more powerful throughout the years. But it's always darkest just before the dawn. And in 1933, the Cullen-Harrison Act was passed, which re-legalized the production and sale of beer and wine up to 3.2% by volume. And within that first year, 756 breweries popped up. By 1950, though, that number had dwindled down to only 206 breweries. The corporate giants had taken back over, and everybody was drinking yellow, bad beer. But in 1965, a man by the name of Fritz Maytag III bought a struggling brewery in California called the New Albion Brewing Company. And they consider that the rejuvenation of the craft beer market. So again, we'll fast forward to the 21st century. As you can see, there's a steep rise in the amount of breweries that are around. And actually, in 2015, they surpassed the record, which was set in 1873, the historical peak, and there were 4,269 breweries in operation at the time, and I can only imagine that there's more now. So I guess you can see that we started to go from the quantity to the quality of beer. Stop going with the 18 packs and started getting 6 packs of the good stuff. So next time you're sitting down with your buddies and you're cracking open a cold one, consider who you're supporting and the history behind it, because there's a lot more than you may think there is. Maybe deviate from your usual pick. Pick something a little bit more flavorful. Don't necessarily go with the big conglomerate beer companies. And we live in Orlando. It's a huge city, great craft brewing city. There's all sorts of brew pubs you can go to, and you can support your local community. So, stay thirsty, my friends.